Hello class, this is Brother Alvy. I just thought I'd help you out if you are having trouble getting started with the first assignment. Thought I'd go over it just a little bit and give you a little bit of scaffolding. The first program, sometimes the students have a little trouble getting it submitted, and so make sure you have your header set up properly, make sure it's the proper assignment, make sure it's my name, and make sure it's got your name under author, and everything should be okay when you try to submit it. What I'd like to show you today is just some of the basics of how I would set up my program. Okay. I know I'm going to use input and output, so I've got your basics. I got the IOStream library. I know I'm going to use strings, so I'm going to use the string library. For convenience in using cin and cout, I'll use the standard namespace. And then I'll just kind of describe to you how I set up my main function. In main, I'm just kind of following along with the steps for the assignment. Okay. It says I'm supposed to prompt the user for a 10-character DNA marker sequence. I'm supposed to prompt the user for a number of potential relatives. So that's what these first two cout and cins are doing. Okay, and I've got set up. I've got two lists. I've got a list to keep track of the names that they're going to be giving me, and I've got a string to put in their DNA list. Okay, for their DNA. And so first I have a string. I ask them to enter their DNA sequence. I put it inside the user DNA string. The next one, I have a count variable. It's an integer, type integer. I ask them to put in how many relatives, and I store that in the count. So now I've got everything set up. I have the skeleton for 3 functions that I plan on writing. So to go with part 3, prompt for the names of each of the potential relatives and store them in an array of strings. I have prompt for relative names. I pass along the list that I created that is max count, so it's got 50 things in it, so I can have up to 50 names in it. So I pass along the names list. I pass along count, so I know how many names to ask them to get. Okay. And then the next step, so I'm expecting that to ask the user however many times they specified for count. I'll ask them that many times for a name, and I'll put those inside of name list, so I'll be able to have access to those. Then the next part, prompt for the 10-character DNA marker sequence of each of the potential relatives. That's the next function I have, prompt for relatives DNA. Okay, so after I have their names, now I have my name list, and then I'm going to pass along the DNA list, so I'll have a place to put their markers. And again, I need to know how many times this needs to happen, so I pass along the count variable. Okay, so after this function is over, the first function filled up my name list. The next function is going to read the name list and fill up the DNA list and make sure they're in the same positions. The next part of this, display each potential relative along with the percentage that their sequence matched the target user. This is where a lot of the logic is going to happen, okay, in the mathematics. Display match percent. So I've got all the data collected. I've got the user DNA, I've got all the names, and I've got their DNA lists, and I know how many times, I know how big those lists are, or at least how full those lists are, by the count variable. Okay, and then I just return. So, and then I created a skeleton for each one of these. The first 2 functions are void functions, and the first one needs an array list, so I have to specify that it's an array of strings, and then also an integer. The second function, prompt for relatives DNA, I again need an array of strings, 2 array of strings, and another integer for the count. The third function, compute match, that's going to be another function that's going to be a helper function for the display match percentage. Okay, and in display match percentage, I have a string, two string arrays, and the count. So those have to match up with the values that I'm passing through. So now I'm all set, and I'll just knock each one of these functions out one at a time. And I'll have a couple more videos to show you a few of those functions to help you out.